So Vlad, I'm wondering, what are some mistakes? What are common mistakes that people make when they're in this virtual world, and what do they leave out? I mean, kind of a companion question here.
I think the biggest mistake people make is they don't invest enough in communication skills and specifically over communicating. And I know that's your guys' expertise, but it's really, really true. I think especially in the remote teams, there's this real fear of missing out. And so we do a lot of things to make sure that that's not a fear that we have. For example, all of our communication, we encourage them to be public channel communications. So only reserving one-on-one communication to like HR and like maybe operational, financially sensitive topics. Everything else is public Slack channels that everybody can join. So we have our marketing channels that have engineers in it, and we have engineering channels that have marketing people in it. So this way, everybody can chime in and kind of get the wisdom from it.
Right.
Given that we're trying to make virtual meetings shorter, do you think it's important to separate the business portion from the social portion in order to keep the business shorter? Where do you stand on that?
If the work meeting is just work, it's just not joyful. And there's a lot of context that gets missed out. So for example, I start my executive team meetings with, how are you feeling today? Are you above the line, below the line? Just to get a context of where people are at. And there are times
Below the line meaning,
like, are you feeling like uplifted, or are you kind of feeling grouchy, like the world's against you? You don't have enough time, you know? And there are days when I'm below the line. I'm like, today seems like everything's going wrong. I'm out of time on all the stuff. And so it gives people context that maybe I'm shorter in my responses, or the way I approach things isn't like I usually do, and they understand why. And also a moment of connection. I mean, you guys teach this all the time. Moments of connection are so important in strong working relationship. We have meetings that start out with appreciations, where everybody in the company has a chance to just say, what is it that I appreciate? And it could be as simple as like, Susan, I really appreciate you took my call yesterday when I so desperately need your help on messaging, even though it was after collaboration hours, and and so on and so forth.
so every one of your meetings begins with appreciations.
Once a week, they start with appreciation. And then another couple of days a week, we have celebrations.
Oh,
and
tell us about that. Yeah.
And those are small, could be smaller things. And it's everything from like, I scored paper towels because we were out of paper towels for a long time. I couldn't find them anywhere, and I finally got paper towels. So that was my celebration to the team. But we also,
Paper tablet.
and toilet paper. Yeah. So they could be like totally personal ones, or my kid finished this level in Khan Academy. Like they could be work related ones. Like we got this great mention in the Vogue, and so that was a celebration as the company. Or it's a bug that you've been working on for a long time, and now you finally figured it out. And out of 30 minutes, that usually takes about 10-15 minutes as well. So it's a bigger chunk of time, but it's so worth it.
Once a week, right?
Twice a week. We do those twice a week, yeah. So 3 times a week, we have these longer team stand-up meetings where we don't just cover what's happening, but we actually build relationships with each other.
Wow.
So Vlada, in the short time we have left for this interview, is there anything you can think of that we haven't covered yet that could really help this group understand and be able to work more effectively with virtual teams?
Yes, I think there's 2 things that I would want to cover.
Never at a loss.
The first one that we learned the hard way is how important it is to set collaboration hours. Meaning that a time that everybody in your company will be consistently available at their computer within 5 minutes to respond to your request.
Wow.
And so for us, that's 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. PST. You can play with it, whatever works in your organization, however long and short it is. And the reason for that is, without it, it's very easy for people to, especially now with kids at home, to spend an hour going or helping with the homework, or going for a walk, a dog walk, and so on and so forth. And so you end up keep missing each other. And so important work gets missed because I'll ping you and say, hey, can I talk to you? Like, oh, I'll be back in an hour.
Got it.
Or you don't hear back. So that's a really important piece.
Yeah.
Everybody's available. And then the second piece is, and I touched on it earlier, but I just think that bonds, social bonds are so important, and establishing points of connection as much as possible outside of work and outside of just like saying what you're doing at work is just so important to building productive teams. And so for us, we created a bunch of Marco Polo groups, things like Joy Kids, and we have one for pets, we have one for cooking, home improvement. There's one for grilling, especially now that the season is starting up. And it's just a chance for people to connect over other stuff. And, you know, and of course you guys know that if you have that kind of warm connection with somebody, you're more likely to go an extra mile, really willing to help.
And to not take things they say wrong, because you've got this foundation of trust.
Right. Oh, Vlada, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So glad we got to chat about this. Really appreciate your input.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Be well.
Bye.